Now, since waste management in Kenya is a devolved function to the counties, what kind of opportunities do you now see as you're taking on this for e-waste?
Thank you. As you rightly put it, waste management is actually devolved to the counties under the Schedule 4 of the Constitution. And for us, initially, I think counties have always focused so much on the aspect of solid waste but because, as you have mentioned earlier, the people rarely do waste separation, and therefore you find a lot of e-waste that is dumped that could create value if it was recycled. And so there is a lot of opportunity if we actualize having centers closer to people where we can have e-waste separated and then recycled in the right manner. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity in terms of amount of e-waste being recycled currently, and that could actually improve a lot if we are able to have centers closer to people where they can have e-waste recycled. I hope I've not lost you.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, we lost, all of us lost ourselves again in cyberspace, but I managed to, yeah. I'm glad you're with us still. Thanks. So that's great. I'm sure perhaps Juma, you might also have some comments or questions, as well as you, Ibrahim, to Juma. I think we go straight ahead because the other ones are not available. 2 hours from the session.
Before we get a comment from Dr. I'm seeing there is a comment from, there's a question on the Q&A. Does NMS have plans of setting up collection centers in estates to the residential area by Virginia Onyara? Yes, we actually, the idea of having material recovery facilities, they will also act as collection centers because that is where we would expect, and we have agreed that we are going to have a component to have or hold e-waste. So when initially we had done them to accommodate organic waste, the recyclables are grouped, lumped together, and plastics. And therefore now we are saying let's have a component to hold e-waste. So yes, we are going to have 17 of them in number, each in every sub-county for now.
Great, thank you. And Juma, would you like to add something? Now we have lost your sound again.
Are you hearing me now? Is it better? Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to bring up something, and I'm happy to see in NMS, that is Nairobi Metropolitan Services, coming into this because one in our strategy, even the national steering, national strategy that is for Kenya, and I can see my chairman, Dr. Macharia, is also on this forum. He can tell you more, but the national strategy is also focusing on collection, and the county governments for Kenya. In other countries, they would be like local authorities or municipalities. The county governments are very, very crucial in terms of setting up collection centers, because you realize that they are in a position to be able to interact with the residents in terms of waste collection. So this is an aspect which is very important if we have the county governments or the municipalities or local authorities getting involved, because they will help us streamline not only the segregation of waste so that we can have e-waste on its own, but also the collection of the same. Then that will make our work easier. Now, the other thing that I wanted to ask a question, I do not know whether the participant from or the panelist from Nigeria is still here, but I wanted to ask something in terms of a regional coordination of US activities. Do we have anything in West Africa? At one point, I got a glimpse of something, some regional organization in West Africa. I can't just remember the name. Do we have a regional initiative in West Africa handling US, just like we have in EACO in East Africa? Probably if the Nigerian panel is still around, or anybody who may have that information. And probably even in other parts of Africa, North Africa and South Africa or Central Africa, do we have any such initiative? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juma, and very good question. And we will see if she's in there, and we're having a conversation, so we will have an answer soon. We have some other questions for NMS. Do we have a working, or first, does the NMS have a specific budget for e-waste within its solid waste management budget? From Philip Cortez.
Currently, no. The current budget that we have is actually generalized for waste management, and so therefore it's not specific to e-waste. The reason being is that we've not been able to do waste separation to an extent that we can be able to say these are the quantities of e-waste that we produce within Nairobi, and therefore this is the amount of money required to manage that waste. So like I was saying earlier, we get, once you transport waste to the final disposal, that is when you realize there is a lot of e-waste that has also ended up within the solid waste mixed. And therefore, probably going forward, because this is also a new area for us, we might go down to get to know maybe the quantities of e-waste produced, and therefore there define a budget around that area. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question, which is, do we have a working national policy that works for the whole country apart from NMS? Asked by Crispinos Ekise. Do we have a working national policy that works for the whole country apart from NMS?
I'm not sure whether Dr. Ayub Mashari want to answer that question.
No, unfortunately, he is not with us. So, Juma, you can represent.
I saw him sometime, maybe he left. But that's a very good question, because that is where we are talking of, okay, in Kenya, I believe national policy, you mean Kenya. Of course, we are here, many countries from Africa. But I don't think we don't have a national policy as such. What we have is a national US management strategy, which was put in place in 2019. Then the other thing we have is the US guidelines that is being enforced by National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA. We don't have a policy in Kenya as such. Those are some of the things that we are working on. Thank you. I don't know whether that addresses the concern. Did you hear me, Simone? Because I'm not hearing you. Ibrahim, you look like you heard me.
Yeah, I heard you,
Simone
Dr.
seems lost.
A bit.
Then at least I know people heard me. Simone, you are lost and you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
now
thank you.
You are muted.
So we've gotten some answers. There is SAEWA, Saeba, in South Africa. mentioned by Virginia Onyara. And then in Central Africa, particularly Douala, Cameroon, we started a voluntary scheme geared towards the collection of e-waste in containers for a better and sound disposal, told by PS Tekoro. And then there's a question about any plans for the NMS to consider working with the informal sector, asked by Thu.
Yes, if I may take that, any plans of NMS consider working with the informal sector? Actually, the material recovery facilities we are doing will be given to the community-based organizations to manage, who at some point have been doing either waste separation informally, and therefore they are not that formal in nature. So yes, we work with informal sector players, and we encourage informal sector players to come on board.
That's great. Good. I also had a question here to both of you, actually, in the local and in the more regional perspective. Do you see that there's a good collaboration going on with, for instance, the health department or health ministry, considering this is a big health hazard, but it falls under environment and natural resources many times, and also with the ICT departments, which has a lot of knowledge, and they are also the ones procuring and buying in a lot of electronics. So they might have very valuable information when it comes to durability, etc. Do you see that we're working well together over the department boundaries? We can start with Juma.
Okay, I didn't get the last bit. You're saying working together with the health sector?
Yeah, do you see that there's a good collaboration with, for instance, the health sector, health departments within government? And do you also see that we're working, for instance, with ICT that might have a lot of information and knowledge about the electronics, and they are also procuring and buying a lot of equipment, of course, to the governmental entities? So do you see that we have these transboundary departmental collaborations?
Okay, I think what I can say is we may not have specifically been doing it that way. I mean, specifically health sector, but the arrangement is, even if I look at the national CS management strategy, is that we should have collaboration with all government, especially, let me put it, all public institutions, so that we are able to have a view of what is in terms of ICT, in terms of electronics that are being purchased in these areas, in terms of how they are being disposed. So generally, it is more partnership with all public institutions, not specifically on the health sector. But I can tell you that we foresee a lot of collaboration in that area, collaborating with all public institutions so that we are able to manage the waste electricals and electronics that come through from those areas.
Good. How do you see it, Ibrahim, locally in Nairobi? Because people are faring ill due to the contamination. So that's why I see it's important to have a kind of... Do you see
sure.
that?
Yes, Madam Smes. I think in terms of collaborations, as the doctor has rightly put it, we try as much as possible to ensure that we bring on board all stakeholders, particularly during the development stages or even at the implementation stages of whatever strategy or policy that we come up with, so that we ensure that all stakeholder views. I can just give an example because e-waste is something that is new that we are getting into. But for when we were developing the Sustainable Waste Action Plan that informed the development of the material recovery facilities, we worked very closely with the Ministry of Environment, with the National Management Environment Authority, stakeholders in waste management, recyclers, informal sector players, so that we come up with a document that is actually can be owned by all, and even the implementation becomes easy. So yes, we work very closely with other sectors to ensure that whatever we do is becomes easy to implement.
So I'm sorry about my connection, but thank you for your answer. I managed to hear it before I went away. So we have a few more questions. This is great. I'm happy to see that the Q&A session is just filling out here. So please, what kind of physical factors did NMS consider before choosing the collection centers? James Nyantakai. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it.
Thank you, James, for the answer. The physical factors, of course, one is access, but I want to mention one thing is that when we're choosing these areas, these are actually areas that had initially been used as transfer stations or collection centers, but now we are trying to transform them into by building a material. What was used to happen is that people just bring mixed waste and put it there, all of it. Now we are building structures to ensure that when waste comes in, there is a receiving area. There will be separation of that waste, and then it will be put into the different cubicles so that we transport the different components of the waste separately. So, of course, if you look in terms of physical factors, is one of the first choice was it's already an existing collection point, and therefore there will not be a lot of, the not in my backyard kind of argument. People not really like waste. So if it's already an existing area, it becomes easy to implement. And of course, access. How accessible is that place? Because there were several areas across, but we moved to the 17 because of one, the accessibility of the sites. Number two, was of course they were already existing, as I've already mentioned, so there is not a lot of back and forth in terms of getting community buy-in. Then number three, they were more central within the sub-counties. Nairobi is actually put into 17 administrative zones. So these administrative zones have a small administrative zone called wards. So the wards are about 85, but the sub-counties are 17. So we're looking at areas within the sub-county that is accessible to all the wards. If a sub-county has 4 or 5 wards, depending on the area, therefore we're looking for an area that can be accessed by all from the various wards. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question. Can there be a way in which SMEs can be empowered and financed to help counties in educating members of the public and help in e-waste collection? Do you see that there's a possibility? Sorry, did you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So there's a question of if any way SMEs can be empowered and financed to help counties in educating members of the public and help in e-waste collection. It's Eric Kutsuni. Sorry. And if so, how do you see that happen? Juma, your sound is off.
I was waiting for Ibrahim to speak. Are you hearing me now? Because I can see it touches on counties, but again, it's a bit wide because in terms of financing SMEs or empowering them to be able to help with US collection and education, I would talk of awareness because in our strategy, both in the national strategy and also the regional strategy, awareness is very key. So, and we are looking forward to collaborate with the county governments, in this case for Kenya, and in other countries, the local authorities or the municipalities, to be able to progress the issue of awareness, because it starts with awareness. If the consumer or in the household they are not aware that they're supposed to segregate their waste, for ease of collection, then it will become more difficult to manage the e-waste. So in our strategy, yes, we have that in mind. In terms of financing, maybe not quite, because finances are very much limited, but probably NMS can say whether they have that kind of arrangement to finance SMEs to collect e-waste. Thank you. I'm not hearing anybody now, so I don't know whether I'm the one who is lost. I think Simone is muted.
Am I still lost? Or can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. I don't know whether you heard me.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much. Anything to add, Ibrahim, from your side?
No, not concerning. Okay, on the issue of SMEs being empowered or financed to help counties and educate members of the public, I think Dr. Ali has really addressed that, because I think it's a bit wide when it comes to empowerment. I think there is some actually a whole ministry of MDA that deals with SMEs and the empowerment. But when it comes to education and awareness, I think that comes key, because it is from this point that people are even able to separate their e-waste. So the finance from counties or to help counties in educating members of the public might be a challenge, but I think there are other avenues, probably even from the development partners, where you can do proposals to get funds to do public awareness campaigns on e-waste.
Wonderful, thank you. Oh, and now Juma Ooro dropped out. We had a few more questions here. Welcome back, Juma. And we also have Inge Knappen has shared that recently there was a circular and fair ICPAC.com has been launched. Good to join for all organizations present here in avoiding e-waste streams. So there's a link, and we will gather this also in our compiled material afterwards, but anyone who is with us now can go and check that out. The policies, plans, and strategies in place are very wonderful. I am concerned with one, level of implementation and working sites that can serve as examples and can be used for benchmark, particularly in Kenya. 2, role and level of industrial training, particularly for the staff involved in the entire management, occupational standards and safety. This is from Musa, from National Industrial Training Authority, NITA. Any response to that one? Juma?
Okay, this is a very major one. You are able to hear me? Because we were talking about, and thank you for the concern, Musa. And I know NITA does a lot of training. Probably they are going to help us in this kind of training. One of the things that we are trying to do is in terms of mainstreaming e-waste in the education curriculum. If you look at the national strategy and also the regional strategy, we would want a situation where e-waste is mainstreamed in the educational curriculum. For right from, actually we are looking at it from right from the primary school, that is basic education, all the way to the university, so that it becomes something that when people grow, they already know it in their mind, that e-waste should be handled in a special way, because it poses certain risks. So I think when we get to that, because in our network, one of the things we want to have is we want to have both research and educational institutions as part of our network in terms of creating awareness. So I believe when we get to that level, we probably are going to involve the likes of NITA to be able to help us with this. in terms of awareness and also implementation of certain policies. I can't talk so much about the sites. I'll leave the sites to the recyclers here. The recyclers who are here can tell us about the sites that we have in terms of recycling, and probably I know NMS have talked so much about these collection sites, so probably that can also help in answering that. Thank you.
Oh, I'm lost again. I'm sorry. Am I with you? Do you hear me? All right. So the last question, before we go to a poll and see what came out of that, is what are the mechanisms you intend to put in place to involve the waste picker? The involvement of women and youths who majorly work in the waste and recycling industry, from Ivana Nyango.
If we are talking of the waste pickers within the Nairobi Metropolitan area where NMS has jurisdiction, then as I mentioned...
we can't hear you.
Oh.
Now
Can you hear me now? Okay, good. Yes. I'm saying if it involves waste pickers and women and youths involved in waste management value chain, particularly within the Nairobi Metropolitan area where we have NMS as jurisdiction, is, as I mentioned earlier, the material recovery facilities we are building, these are areas initially that they are being used as waste collection points. And it is the CBOs and the youths within those areas that were bringing waste into these areas. So essentially, we are actually just upgrading their collection points and having them work within those same areas now, more or less an upgraded facility. So we are actually involving them because they are the ones going to manage the material recovery facilities.
And in terms of, I see a question there, in terms of the youths and women who work in the waste and recycling industry. I believe Tuo is here of EWIC, and I know he involves this youth a lot and women in this. He could explain maybe during his presentation, or if he can explain now, but I know they are doing a lot with the women and the youth in terms of collecting of e-waste and other waste.
Very true. So we will hear Tuo later on around 2:15, somewhere, 2:10. So we will see what. And now I'm lost. Can you hear me now? Okay. We did a poll in the beginning of session, so if we all go to the right-hand side and we look at polls, we asked, in your country, do you feel that the enforcement laws are done properly? And 80% thinks no, and 13% says yes, and 7% is not sure. So, and of course, that's always hard to regulate targets, etc., for the each country to spread and make the public aware of where we're going at. Now, in the handouts, in the same right-hand column, you will find Juma Ooro's presentation of the EACO and the East African e-waste strategy. So you can download or look at that one later on. Any final remarks from the both of you? Very short, 1 or 2 sentences.
Thank you, Simone. I think this is a good introduction. Okay, are you hearing me? Yes, I think it is a good engagement, and we will definitely keep on interacting in this space so that we can have a sound management of US, not only in this country, in the region, and of course the Africa region as a whole, where we only have about 1.7 of US being recycled. I mean 1.7%, which is very low of what we are recycling. So we look forward to increasing on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asante Sana. And Ibrahim?
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. And I think this out of this conference should actually come out as a call to action from all sector players to ensure that we manage e-waste soundly in all African cities. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your engagement in this session, our speakers, and thank you all of our audience, and thanks for so many good questions also. This is the activity and the interaction that I'm hoping that we're going to reach in each and every session, because definitely we need to discuss these things and share. So thank you again. We will be back at 2 p.m. sharp Eastern African time. So I welcome you all back to just log in with the same link that you've had. And for our speakers, you have gotten a specific link for your sessions. So if you want a participation link, of course, we will provide with that. So just let us know. So thank you again, and see you soon in 45 minutes.